Thanks to those of you that are just joining us. We are about to get started with our AB 617 steering committee meeting for Fresno. We're just going to give our participants just a few more moments to log on, but thank you so much for joining us, and we will begin in just a couple minutes. While you're waiting, we will put on the screen some instructions for how to change your screen name. If you've not been a part of this meeting before, we'd like to make sure you know how to manage the Zoom function and change the screen name. And if you need interpretation or language support in Spanish, we have instructions for that as well.
Buenas tardes a todos. Estamos aquí esperando que todos se unan a la reunión. Si tiene, perdón. Si tiene preguntas en cómo unirse al canal de interpretación, está abajo el signo de globo y escoja español. También tenemos la línea por si acaso tiene problemas con el Zoom. Tenemos la línea de gratuita del teléfono, es el 888-240-3210. El código de acceso es 2378691 y luego la tecla de número. ¿Alguna pregunta en español? Okay. Thank you, Erica. Looks like we're good.
Hi, can you guys hear me now?
A little bit better,
Little
Lisa.
better.
Hi, can you guys hear me now?
Getting better.
Okay. Tell me.
I think it's delayed still.
Okay, can you hear me now?
You're
Okay,
still
it's a
break-
system then.
Yeah, you're still breaking up a little bit, and it tends to drag and stretch out.
It's great to see so many of you joining us. We are going to get started in just a couple of moments. We're just going to keep on the screen the instructions for changing your screen name. If you're new to this meeting and don't know how, there are some instructions right there on the screen for you. We are going to get started in just a couple of minutes, but we do thank you all for joining us tonight on this beautiful Wednesday night.
Whoop, whoop. Now you've got me. Now I'm gonna like be the music in the background and annoy everyone.
I just turned it off, so I don't know if it stayed on when Hannah started sharing her screen, but I did turn it off so that we can.
Yeah, no, we've
Start
got
on
to
it.
eventually get to work, but I just have it
know.
in my head now.
It's good, right? It's a good vibe to have in your head.
We used to, some of you will remember when we were in person, we would sometimes have fun music as we were getting going when we were in person. So it's good to get back to it.
Absolutely. We can just pretend that we're all taking this meeting outside with a mocktail and one lovely sunshine. It'd be great.
Or not a mocktail if we weren't working.
Exactly. No judgment here. No judgment here. I think we might still be waiting for our community co-host, but I want to confirm that with Hannah and Kim.
I don't see Eric.
I don't either.
Do you want me to test it?
I just did as well.
We have reached out to him a couple times today, so we haven't actually connected with him though.
Yeah, we coordinated a lot last week, but
Good evening to those of you that are just joining us. It's so great to see you on this virtual Zoom call. We're going to get started with our Community Steering Committee meeting in just a couple of moments. We're waiting for our community co-host, but we're so excited that you're all with us. And while you're waiting, feel free to update your screen name. And if you have any questions about language interpretation, we've got 2 slides. One will show you how to update your screen name and what to name yourselves. And then the next slide will show you how to log into the language interpretation line. For those of you that just joined us, you missed the upbeat kind of, I don't know, as Latin kind of flavored instrumental music we had playing. We'll put it back on maybe at the end as well. But it was just a kind of a nice ambiance to set the tone for today as we are moving gradually into nice weather and that summer that we're so looking forward to. Anyway, those of us that are parents may be looking forward to this end of the school year, certainly. Last couple of weeks.
Erica, Jessica and I were just texting back and forth. We think maybe we should just go ahead and get started and plug Eric in. We did talk to him last week. We know he definitely had this on the agenda and was super excited, but I also know there's some weird stuff happening in downtown Fresno right now. And, you know, there's a lot going on. So hopefully he'll pop in here in a minute, but
no problem. You know, we can go ahead and get going, and we do want to honor everyone else's time as well. So we can plug Eric in if he pops in. We are happy to have him join us, but let's go ahead and get started. So for those of you that are on the line and on the social media feeds, good evening, and thank you for joining us. This is the AB 617 South Central Fresno Community Steering Committee meeting, and we're going to have an interesting conversation today about how we can continue to improve the air quality in the Fresno area and what this committee can do to help continue with implementation of their CERP. My name is Erica Manuel, and I'm the head of the nonprofit organization ILG, and I'm happy to lead this facilitation team for this meeting. And my team members, Hannah and Kim, are also on the line, and they are waving and or showing you a reaction. As always, we're here to help you with any technical difficulties you may have throughout the meeting. We always have a lot of different people on these Zoom calls, and the members of the public that may not be familiar, Hannah and Kim are great for helping you if you have any issues with renaming or other Zoom functions. We are happy to support. As always, we like to make sure that we have an inclusive process with all of these meetings. And so we want to make sure that our Spanish language interpretation is working as scheduled and as needed. And I want to check with Anna and make sure that all of the instructions for language interpretation have been clear in case anybody just joined us and needs those instructions. Anna, did you want to help give the details for how to log in?
Si está ingresando ahorita a la junta, es lo mismo que siempre hacemos, es escoja el signo de globo a mero abajo, o si tiene una computadora y escoja español, y luego también tiene que mudar el audio original para que nomás pueda oír el español. Ahora, si tiene preguntas técnicas, nos puede preguntar, pero también tenemos el teléfono gratuito por si en caso Zoom no está respondiendo como debe. Es el 888-240-3210 y el código es 2378691 y luego la tecla de número. ¿Hay alguna pregunta? ¿Todos estamos bien?
Estamos bien. Gracias.
Gracias, Isabel. Gracias, Lilia. Parece que, ok. Lilia, ¿está conectada a la línea de español ya?
Sí, ya estoy en la interpretación.
Okay, gracias, Lilia. Qué bueno que funcionó. Okay, we're good to go.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Anna. And good to see you, Liliana and Isabel. So once again, we are so glad that all of you were able to join us tonight. We are going to have a pretty packed agenda, but it's going to continue to flow throughout the evening. And I know that we're starting a little bit late, but I'm certain we'll make up that time. So the role for my team today is to make sure that your meeting stays on time, that all voices are heard, and that our discussions remain respectful and accomplish all those key objectives. And so we have had quite a few Zoom meetings. So one of the things we're going to do is go quickly through the instructions for how to update your screen name and some of the other Zoom logistics. And then we're going to dive right into the logistics of the meeting and the agenda. The biggest things to remember if you're just joining us or joining us for the first time, please make sure your screen name is accurate, and we are happy to help rename you if you'd like. I do see that we might need to rename a few people, so certainly we are happy to help. Please stay on mute when you are not talking to minimize that background noise. There are quite a few of you on the line, and we definitely want to make sure that everyone has a chance to hear and participate. As a reminder, if you are in that residential stipend program, you will need to stay in this meeting for 75% of the meeting to get credit for it. And as always, this meeting is being recorded and there will be public comments at the end. Since these meetings are open to the public, we're grateful for all those public members that participate via Facebook, YouTube, or other social media channels throughout the evening. If you want to make a public comment through those channels, please use the email address or the Facebook or YouTube the comments, and then we will try to read those at the end of the meeting during the public comment period. If you're on the Zoom line, we will certainly call on you during public comment if you raise your hand and indicate that you'd like to speak. So before we move on, I want to ask Kim if there's any participants logging in via phone or in a group that need to be checked or renamed for attendance purposes. We love it when you guys get together in one room or with one screen, but we want to make sure you get tracked. Is there anyone that needs to be flagged or checked for multiple groups or to be renamed?
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I would love if anybody could speak up and let us know if there are multiple people in your household. Otherwise, I have all other participants labeled.
Excellent. There's a couple options. You can unmute yourself and let us know if you're with the group, or you can type it in the chat and we'll make sure that that gets reflected. Perfect. We'll keep going with our meeting. All right, so showing on the screen now, the virtual meeting etiquette I mentioned. Please stay on mute unless you're speaking or planning to speak. Raise that blue hand if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment. And if you'd like to link your accounts, those are some instructions for doing so. Next slide. On the screen now are just some tips for how we can engage as a committee. You've seen these before. This is just a refresher for our new attendees and the general public. We encourage each of you to share all of your personal truths, and we will hold that space for you in this meeting. We also want to make sure that we try and focus on solutions and opportunities that can help achieve the goals of AB 617, and that goes for members of the CSC and members of the public. And then in this virtual forum, we love to make sure that everybody can participate to the best of their ability. So we ask you to step up and then step back so that everybody on the Zoom call has time to share the space. And along those lines, we ask everyone to be civil and respectful. And that's not to say that you disregard principles or values, but just that you are kind, empathetic, and considerate, and think about how your words might impact another person. We always attack the problem, never a person. And we are committed to making sure everyone on this line is treated with humanity and dignity. Last thing is just keep your comments as focused as possible so we can allow everyone enough time to participate and we can end on time, which I know you all want to do so you can enjoy what's left of the beautiful sunshine. So since we do know that meetings sometimes run long, we're going to make sure that we get to our public comments in time for those members of the public to be able to speak up. So our next, I'm going to check and see if we have our community co-host on the line yet. And if not, I would like to turn it over to our Air District host for his host welcome, and then we'll go over the agenda.
Good evening, everyone. So good to see you. I wanted to start off by thanking everybody that participated in our Friday Night Live incentive discussion a few weeks ago. We had a good participation and very encouraged to see the excitement of the people that participated in the event. And it's my understanding that as a result of it, we have had really positive feedback, and we've seen some interest in people looking to use those incentive programs, which was exactly the purpose for that and trying this out. And as we look to continue to broaden and expand these types of virtual engagement opportunities with people to make sure that they are aware of these incentive programs and get them to hopefully take advantage of them so we can get those emissions reductions in the community. Also want to thank everybody that took the time out last week to participate in the prioritization meeting. I know that was a meeting that was very important to the steering committee members, and it really is going to help us work with all of you to make sure that we are focusing on the different measures in accordance with everybody's thoughts and which is so important. So I just want to thank everybody for that as well, and look forward to another productive meeting tonight and getting some good updates. Thanks.
Thank you, Ryan. All right, well, let's dive right into our meeting. We're so excited to, again, see you all tonight. One of the things that we heard over the course of the last few weeks and months as we've been kind of working through the conversations that we have with all of you are that you wanted to do some adjustments to the agenda. You wanted to make sure there was time built in it, and you also wanted to engage the co-hosts. And so you'll see some of the changes that you've requested in the planning that we did and have been doing for the last few weeks reflected throughout this meeting. And so you'll see even on this agenda, we've built in a little bit of time to make sure that we have enough opportunity to discuss and deliberate as needed. So we have standing updates starting in just a few moments, and then we'll move into a recap of our 2021 annual planning, which we technically will conclude today based on all of the feedback we've received and all of the activities that we have done as a team. And then when we move into enforcement, and then we'll wrap up and finish with public comment. So we have, again, a great discussion, lots of updates, and we hope that we will get out here a little bit after 7 o'clock today. So the first agenda item we have is standing updates. And tonight we've actually got updates on school buses and school air filtration. We've got truck rerouting and the MOU. We've got vegetative barrier subcommittee, and we've got a community air monitoring subcommittee to report on. So we're going to start with school buses and school air filtration. And I want to make sure that the team is on the line. Is anyone from Fresno Unified School District on the line before we jump to the air district?
Yes, you have Reginald Rubin here, the Director of Transportation for Fresno Unified.
Welcome, Reggie. Please take the floor.
Just an update on the school bus replacement. We are looking forward to implement one of these vehicles into our system. As we did with compressed natural gas, we're always looking for an innovative way for our drivers and our students, as well as the community that we serve. As it relates to particulate matter. So moving into this, we are excited that we can move into this program and have one of these buses in our fleet.
Great, thank you for that update. Anyone from the Air District have any additional updates related to school buses and school air filtration that we want to update the CSC on?
Just the update on school buses is just we're working with Fresno Unified to figure this out. I think. And air filtration, the program is up on the website, and we're working with schools to see how it coordinates with them because they have some other monies coming in as well, and it's also trying to figure out their capacity to handle larger filters and how it works. And so it's just an ongoing process because they found out some of the thicker filters, some of the actual conditioners themselves, the filter systems themselves can't handle a super thick filter. So we're trying to figure out how to modify that so it works essentially. So we're still working through that process on the school districts.
Great, thank you for that. I see 2 hands, and what's interesting is the hands have changed colors on my screen. I don't know if they changed colors on yours, but they're not blue for me anymore. They're yellow. So when you get your next Zoom update, you might have a different color hand. The first one that I see is Greg Barfield.
Well, good evening, everyone. Although we're not under the school bus program at the Fresno Area Express or FAX, I do want to let you know that our first 2 zero emission buses, they're battery electric, have arrived in the yard. That's the first 2 of 23. Although you won't see them on the road for some months because there's a lot of training that has to go into it, from mechanics to drivers to our public safety folks. They will be, the first 6 are deployed on Route 38, which serves Southwest, Kalawa, and this particular area. So we are very appreciative of the funds that we've received, and they're Proterra. So you will see more of them as we begin to move that part. So just wanted to let you guys know.
Thanks for that update, Gregory. And if anyone has questions for Gregory, we'll take it right after Naomi.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So Aaron, so the application, or the process that the different school districts need to follow or submit, it's already in your website, and if you can give an update if that's correct, how many have applied, or how is the application process going?
We're working with school districts. We have outreach to the school districts to get applications in. Like I said, but it's a work in progress on the filters to find out if they can be installed in their schools or not. As we found out, it's a larger it's a larger program than we thought as far as the capacity they can do that. So yes, they can apply now, but they're trying to figure out how they would and how they would actually do that essentially. So we're working with the districts and trying to get them in. We've had lots of phone calls with them and just trying to figure it out with them. It's like I said, it's not like a quick thing they can do.
How many districts have you been working with? How many applications are in process?
Well, I don't think we've received any applications so far. Like I said, we're still out of an outreach to them and talking with them about, how their systems can handle these filtration systems when they were installed, or when they do get installed.
There was another factor, and I think it's a good factor. It's definitely not a negative. Aaron alluded to it. So there's state and federal money that are coming down in response to COVID-19 to also help schools with updating HVAC systems. And so you can imagine with a school district as big as Fresno, understanding how they may be able to take that opportunity and use it to the maximum extent possible, and then hopefully looking at the CERT measure in South Central Fresno and pairing that with that to really get that full benefit is something that I know in conversations with several of the school districts that they're looking to understand how they go about doing that. And there's still some unclarity with exactly how the federal and the state money can be used for these projects. So I think there's some of that shaking out, which from our perspective and wanting to get this funding out there and spent as quickly as possible, it is posing a challenge, but very appreciative of the school districts that continue to engage and talk with us about this. And I know I see Keith here, who's definitely been one of the people at the forefront with Washington School District. So.
Thanks for that, Ryan. And I did want to acknowledge that Ivanka had a question in the chat about whether the goal was always to just have one bus, and then wondering what the timing is for discussing the amount of funds to go into the air filtration measures. And then I do see Lisa's hand as well, which we will get to as soon as this question is answered. And I see Naomi's got a double up on that as well.
So I'm looking at, what was the question?
Was the one bus question toward the city, like in Gregory's announcement of the one, or was it toward the school buses?
It's the school bus.
Got it.
For Fresno Unified.
This is Reginald again. With the program, it's a bus replacement program. So we would only have one bus that we can basically dismantle to replace it with an electric bus at this time.
Great. And was there go ahead.
So in regards to the measure that's in the community emission reduction program for South Central Fresno, we have funding for 16 school buses. And so there are other school districts in addition to Fresno Unified that we'll also look to and work with on that, including my understanding is Central Unified has some schools within the boundaries, as well as Orange Center. so we are starting, we're having those conversations with those schools about, their level of interest in also participating. But Fresno Unified definitely is the biggest one that we'd like to work with Reggie to the maximum extent possible to transition as many of those school buses as possible within the time period of the South Central Community Emissions Reduction Program.
Thanks, Ryan. And do you have a time frame identified for when there will be discussion about budget amounts for the funding that goes into either air filtration or apparently even maybe some of the other measures? Is there a schedule in mind for that next time that the CSC can discuss that?
So the way that we had always, and this is up for discussion, was really to, once we started spending more of these funds, and we're seeing what the level of interest from the various parties are, to then engage with the steering committee about, okay, we're having really good participation in this program. I think it's a good idea to look to shift some of the funds potentially from other, measures such as the locomotive measure into this one. I think we're a little early to bring it back and have that discussion, but it's definitely something that we're aware of and are looking to do.
Great. And I do want to thank Lisa for being patient. We'll go Lisa, Kimberly, and then Ivanka, if that works. Lisa,
Hi, yeah, can you hear me now?
Yep, you're good.
Please excuse Tasha. She's been at the dog park all morning and she's gone a little crazy on me. Yes, okay, they know you went to the dog park. Stop it. So, two things. First off, I would like to follow up on Keith because I know he had some issues that needed to be addressed. Were they addressed? I would like to hear from Keith. And second, Ryan, you were supposed to make a 3-minute presentation letting the city council for Fresno know of the programs that were up and coming and available at their city council meeting during their first, where they have public comments, where you have 3 minutes to basically do an elevator pitch. And I'm wondering how come you didn't show up? Thank you.
I did thank you for that suggestion, Lisa. I think Kim laughing. Unfortunately, schedules did not work for that. At the same time, I think by Ruben being here tonight, or I'm sorry, Reggie being here tonight, that we definitely are in talks with them, and we're looking to do as much as we can on that.
All right, we'll keep moving. And I do see Kimberly's hand, and then Ivanka, and then Greg.
Can we get an
quick
update from Keith? And also Ryan, I believe you also said that you would send somebody if you couldn't make it. So, once a promise made, you need to do a promise kept in my mind. But I thank you very much for being proactive and reaching out to the school district.
Thanks, Lisa. I'm not sure if Keith is on the line. I'll let Kimberly take the question first, and then we'll ping back to Keith if he's on the line.
I would like to know, this question is for Ruben, the first question. You have money for one bus that you're getting ready to do. Is it going to be within the boundary of the AB 617 and one of the schools that are within the boundary? And my second question is for the Air District. I remember when we brought the trustees to the meeting, Trustee Johansson and Trustee Thomas volunteered their area. So I wonder, have they been brought back to the table to discuss that?
For me, yes, it will reside within that area. What we will have to do is we will have to build a route that will be functional within that area for this bus to reside in for those students.
Do you know what elementary school or what school it's going to be stationed at? Can you give out that detail, or those details are still being worked out?
Those details are still being worked out, being that we have to build a route for that area.
And do you have a timeline? Sorry.
No, I don't have a specific timeline. I'm sorry. maybe the next meeting I can narrow it down for you.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Reggie. I see, I did offer Keith and if Ivanka, if you're okay with it.
My second question didn't get answered.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
My second question is that Trustee Johansson and Trustee Thomas volunteered their areas. Have they been brought back to the table to discuss, since there is money for 16 buses? They volunteered their areas to do the pilot. So I was wondering, where were those talks at? If I can recall the last meeting. Am I correct, Naomi? They did volunteer their area to be a pilot. So have they been brought back to the table, and what are the discussions going on with them, and when will we get updated about that?
So Kim, this is Ryan. We have not reached out to the trustees again. I think that was a great meeting and really appreciative of the CSC members who were the ones that reached out to those trustees to let them know about the importance of engaging with the community steering committee to help us implement that measure. So if that's the desire, we can look to set something up again. But
well, I just don't want that window of opportunity to close. If they're volunteering their areas, then we need to capitalize on that and not let that window of opportunity close. Since there's money for 16 buses, we need to start having conversations with them to see where we go. It was a very productive meeting, but when it seems like whenever we have a good productive meeting, that's it, that's all. We never follow up on next steps. So I would like to see next steps.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And we could definitely talk to Reggie and work with him on what that looks like with the knowledge of looking to have it in those areas that those trustees worked on or identified as areas that they would like to have that in.
And I'm all for it, Ryan. I mean, just let me know.
All right, appreciate it. Sounds good.
No problem.
Aaron will be working with you on it. Aaron and Brian, thanks.
Kimberly, thanks for keeping me honest on that question. I appreciate it. Sorry for not getting that one answered. And I actually took a note of that as well. I did want to make sure that Keith got a chance to connect back with Lisa's request. Keith, I see your hand up and I'm thinking you're ready to touch base now if you'd like to provide that update, and then we will go to Ivanka.
Yes, I read over the information that was provided in the grant. I hadn't seen the specifics of this grant before, but I'm reluctantly, I'm going to say the grant has questionable technologies that are not proven. And so as much as it breaks my heart, I don't know that we're going to participate because we are going with a solid program for our HVAC units as recommended by some of the professionals. NEMI and UC Davis has a air filtration program that's specifically for schools. And they would never have recommended the grant the way it is. So that's where I am at this point.
Just to kind of,
excuse me, Keith, what technologies are you having a problem with? What is the main issue?
The unproven technologies. Unfortunately, the little air filters that, I have one in my room and I think they're great for small spaces. But when it comes to big spaces, you have to use enough to cover the spaces. So if you're going to use air filters, you don't use one in a classroom. You use between 8 and 13. Now, how practical is it to use between 8 and 13 air filters in a classroom? And you have to have your HVAC system working in conjunction with that. If you just have the air filters running by themselves, there's only limited amount of things that they can do. But if you're going to use them, like if you're going to use them in a principal's office, or if you're going to use them in a small office that's say 100 square foot, 150 square foot, they're great. But the average classroom is 1,000 square feet. So unless you're going to use, in conjunction with the HVAC units, which isn't even mentioned in this grant other than filters, unless you're going to use them in conjunction with those, they're not worth very much. And also, if the people on that committee had read the leading thoughts on those, the people who are the experts in the field, the Chris Ruches, Teresa P., those experts will tell you, focus on the HVAC, and if you want to buy some of those as well, oh, okay, go ahead. They're not going to hurt anything to have those, but they are not a priority in getting air filtering to the students. I mean, we look at the Visalia, we look at, as a matter of fact, I sent the information on Visalia Unified to the UC Davis. They looked it over, they ran the numbers, and they said that air filter that they're putting in each classroom is for 108 square feet in a 1,000 square foot classroom. How good is that? I think everybody here knows that 108 square feet is not going to help that much to a 1,000 square foot room.
Keith, I want to thank you for that input. And I did want to acknowledge that in the chat, there's a couple comments related to Brian Moore at CARB, and then connecting maybe with you and the incentives team and then the group at UC Davis. I don't know if Brian has the opportunity to get off mute and make any additional comments here, but that offer has been made to connect with you, Keith.
Yeah, for sure, Keith. If you can email me, we could figure this out. I know that our incentive team talked to a lot of HVAC experts to develop the guidelines, but it's a very nuanced issue. And I know that the portable units were supposed to cover classrooms that could not handle higher grade filters with their HVAC, but you've really done a great job of tooling up, and you are like an expert on this now. So please email me. Maybe we could put the group you're working with at Davis in touch with our indoor air filtration staff and figure something out.
Yeah, it just seems that that this project, it might need to be tweaked for greater benefit to the school.
Yeah. If you look at the white papers from UC Davis, from NEMI, from Berkeley, Lawrence Berkeley, they all say the same thing. Oh, yeah, they don't hurt anything. They're fine, but here's your priorities. As a matter of fact, I was just looking at the UC Davis website an hour ago, and they have 5 priorities for getting classrooms up and running. And air filters and the UV lights and things like that, they're the 5th one. And it's basically, yeah, and if you want to do something else, you could do this, but it's definitely not recommended, but it's acceptable.
Thank you, Keith. And I want to thank Lisa and also Brian for that as well. I did want to acknowledge, Ivanka, you've had your hand up for a really long time. And I see, Ryan, your hand as well. Is your hand, Ryan, related to this conversation first before we get to Ivanka?
Let Ivanka go first.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for your honesty and directness, Keith. My question was about the air filters and how this steering committee's goal is to support what the school districts need to get this funding where it needs to be spent for air filtration, right? And so my question really is, like Lisa just pretty much just said, how, and this question is to Ryan and Brian, how do we take this measure back to the drawing board to get it right? And to say that it's not time to discuss additional funding or allocations to go to this program. No, it is the right time to discuss that, because if we have Keith or any of the school district representatives telling us this is a big one and there's a lot of money that has to be put to making this work properly, then you know, we as the steering committee, we are the residents, the laymen that know our children in these schools are being impacted. So if that's our priority and we have an agreement with the schools that there's a priority for better air filtration, but it has to be done in a certain way, how do we take this back to the drawing board? Who's responsible? Is this at the CARB level that you have to do your better research with that frontline information that Keith has to offer? Or is this responsibility of the air district or a combination of the both? If we have those funds that we're on a timeline that has to be spent, we can't just push those to the back burner when we want all that data up front that Keith has to offer, the other experts have to offer, and align that with what the data is truly showing with, even if we're not even close to the ballpark of having the funding, that's not the, like, if we have, we've all decided we didn't want to put that funding into one engine, train engine, that's a lot of funding that can go somewhere, right? So it needs to be a conversation that's happening at the same time. This steering committee has the right to understand these types of details that Keith is really we're hearing from him and not from the air district of why it's truly running so slowly. So I don't know, any other steering committee members, if this is your priority, then how do we take this back to the drawing board to make sure that the grant is written in alignment with the data and what the data proves is truly needed in our schools?
I personally think that we need to have a special meeting on this, and that Keith needs to get together with CARB and the air district and figure it out and bring us back something. Because, you know, if we're offering people money and they can't use it, then we're wasting our time. We've wasted a year of our time. And, you know, we need to help get the kids back in school, especially this fall. And we just really need, it's something that happens when you have a new program. Sometimes it has to be tweaked. This one needs to be retooled. And so we need definitely we need the information of what's going right and what's going sorely wrong. We need CARB to look at the setup and to read Keith's research. And people need to talk and they need to come back. CARB, the air district, and I would say I would love Keith to do a presentation of what he's found to work and bring that back to a special meeting. I mean, it wouldn't take more than an hour for us to talk about this issue and to see what we need to do.
Thanks for that comment, Lisa. I did want to give Ryan a chance to weigh in. I know he's been waiting. I see Kevin's hand. Then I also want to acknowledge that our co-host Eric Payne has joined us. So he's going to help guide this conversation as well and make sure that we hit the agenda items that you'd like to for tonight. Ryan?
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think Brian has raised the point that the guidelines that are developed in the program that was in the South Central Community Emissions Reduction Program requires the following the CARB guidelines. And my understanding is they have been effective and have been used across the state for these types of projects. I know Keith had submitted a kind of a proposal that a company had done for the school, and we had kind of looked at it and it seemed like it met the guidelines. And curious to hear from Keith if that was still what you were going to go with, in which case I think that project plan would fall under this, and we would be able to use these guidelines to fund that project.
Actually, we've decided that we're going to go very traditional, conventional, since the majority of our HVAC systems are about 31 years old. And actually, I want to say it's 93% of our HVAC units are 28 years and older.
Okay.
So we're just going to replace those with new machines, and we're going to run MERV 14 in them.
Okay. So these guidelines would allow for the funds in this program to basically reimburse the school district to purchase those filters. And I want to make sure that that you understand that, Keith.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And I don't want to say that they're completely useless. The HEPA portable filtrations have one great advantage over everything else. People feel good when they're next to their desk.
So, Keith, I think you're talking in addition to the HVAC filters, right? The standalone
Right.
unit. That's
The
as a
standalone
separate-
units. Yes. Yeah.
So, but it sounds like your school district is mainly going to focus on putting in the higher efficiency HVAC filters, which is covered under these program guidelines. And we can work with you right away. Once you get those new HVAC system in to purchase those filters for those units.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So
that sounds good.
Yeah, we'll work with you on that to make sure that happens. In which case, these guidelines will work for that.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds
great.
good.
Thank you.
It sounds like after a little bit of clarification and that the current system might work for what at least Keith is wanting to do. And Ryan's going to touch base with Keith after this meeting to make sure that what was planned can actually be implemented, and then the funding can be applied to some of the projects Keith wants to do and still meet the objectives. I do want to go to Kevin, and then we'll give Eric a chance to weigh in here.
I'll make it quick. So it sounds like I'm not sure what happened here because I came late. I had multiple things going on today in a row, but yeah, it was never intended that this would be limiting, Keith, or that in some way, at least as a committee member, I never had that intention. And that in fact, we recognize that we might need to pay for some retrofit on the existing equipment so that, MERV 13s or 14s could be used. And, even facing the fact that some of the school infrastructure, especially in the smaller school systems, might need some, a little help there. We certainly provide enough help to diesel truck fleets out here where we're paying for half the cost of a new truck, for God's sake, or in other areas where we're paying for half the cost of electrical infrastructure. I don't see why we can't put some money toward at least 25 or 30% of the cost of these new HVAC units that you want to. That's so awesome that you're going to tax a small school district with spending the amount of money they're going to have to spend that could go to other things, I'm sure, for these units and not help you at all with anything but filters. And that just seems wrong. And I don't believe, and I think you're right that whoever said that the committee needs to meet again and we need to talk about this. And UC Davis, we participated in a really interesting study. I love UC Davis, where they put filter technology in 100 homes here and then walked away and left it after a year. And so none of those residents has ever been able to use any of that technology. So they're interested in learning. That's great. But they're not the people I go to for long-term for advice how to operationalize any of this stuff and run it long-term. That's Keith. I go to him. He's the facilities guy. So, we really need to be thinking about that. And he's right. The first goal is if we can get those HVAC systems in the classroom up and running, great. If somebody took the time to review the ARB reports on South Coast experiments in this, they'd find that people weren't all that thrilled, especially teachers, trying to compete with the noise these in-room air filter stacks make sitting in the middle of the room or in the corner of the room. They're generating a lot of noise. So teachers really felt it was difficult and it impacted the learning environment. So we all want clean air for the kids. Let's just get them new HVAC units that they can actually put the right filter in, make sure the school is weatherized, and we can call this done. There is a pathway forward here. And why we're not just going down that path and somehow going on this Band-Aid of sticking this big metal stack in a room with a big fan in it and a bunch of cool filters. That's great for the filter company and people that make that. I don't think it's so great for the schools. Those classrooms are small already, right? We already have too many kids in too many of these classrooms. And now we're going to stick this technology in there? I don't think so. So that's my little editorial on that for the day. Thank you. And I think this committee needs to meet again. I don't feel like we've met in quite a while now. We need to meet again.
Thanks for that feedback, Kevin. I did promise to jump to Eric, so I do want to give him that chance. Eric, did you want to welcome everyone as a co-host and give your thoughts before we pop to Keith, and it looks like Ryan as well?
No, I just wanted to say I think this conversation is very timely, and Keith, I want to thank you for expressing, some of the concerns relative to the program. I think, we're kind of building the ship as we go with the implementation of this legislation. And we certainly want to be responsive to the needs of the districts. But also, we don't want to have a missed opportunity. And I'm glad that your willingness to come to the table and have these conversations with Air District staff who's fully committed to working with you and reconciling some of these challenges. And so I'm going to pause there because I know this has been a very intimate and passionate discussion on air filtration, and I want to ensure that we've captured many of the statements from the other committee members who have dropped some comments in the chat, and then I want to make room for other items on our agenda, which will probably also take an equal amount of time. And so, Erica, if we can go to the next agenda item, and then we will make a parking lot for some of the other comments that people have queued up for. And I think we will certainly hear folks out towards the committee commissioner reports towards the end of the meeting. So if you would just do me a huge favor, commissioners, and just hold on to your thoughts. We appreciate your commitment to this work, but we certainly want to make room in our agenda for the other items. So if we can move to the next item, Erica.
Absolutely. And I do acknowledge those of you, thank you, that have already put things in the chat. Please feel free to continue to do that if that works for you as well. So the next agenda item on this one is Scott Mosier. He's going to offer an update on truck rerouting and the MOU. Scott, are you on the line?
Yes, Erica. Good evening, everyone. Scott Mosier with the City of Fresno Public Works Department. And we've had some updates in previous meetings. Wanted to let all of our members know and everyone in the public who's attending. The subcommittee's work has continued. We got, as the city team, we got some good comments back on the request for proposal for consultants to prepare a truck rerouting study, the transportation components of that. And so now we have scheduled a follow-up meeting June 9th. And at least for us on the City of Fresno team, it's our hope that the subcommittee will be ready to approve, or with that discussion, maybe a small edit or two, and that we'd be able to move forward. Working with the Air District team, the plan is then, if that item is approved by the subcommittee, we'll bring the draft RFP before the full Community Steering Committee in July at that scheduled meeting. And if that's approved by the full committee, then the city would be ready to release that RFP in the latter part of July. So we are making headway. In terms of funding, we are on a fiscal year system. So City of Fresno, like many agencies, July 1 to June 30th. The dollars are appropriated, meaning we have spending authority this current fiscal year. But given the time frame, we are rolling those over. That's proposed to be in the city's fiscal year 22 budget. Same commitment, same thing carried over. And we're looking forward to moving forward. As far as the MOU, that's really a separate topic. The truck rerouting study would come with it, just a simple reimbursement agreement. And that's an item that before implementing, actually awarding a contract, would need to be in place. So the ultimate action is approval of an RFP by the steering committee, release of that, then bringing back a proposed consultant contract with a reimbursement agreement between the city and the air district. And then we're at the finish line of that component of it, but we're really at the starting gate. And then the real work begins of that study with lots of good involvement from committee members and other stakeholders. So I'm available with any questions.
Thank you, Scott. And I do see Lisa's hand. Lisa, did you have a question or a comment?
No, I actually would like to make a motion that that no reimbursement agreements or funds will be expended until the MOU is agreed upon.
Eric, what are your thoughts as the co-host on this and then Air District team?
Is there a second to the motion?
Naomi seconds.
Roll call vote, please.
Hold that thought.
We've never had a roll call vote before, Eric.
I think you need discussion, Eric.
Discussion?
Can I just ask a clarifying? This is just personal, not rip. You're talking about an MOU that we've been talking about kind of in general about like land use and that sort of thing. You're talking separate from this subcommittee.
Okay. Yes, it goes all in as a package because I don't want to be out there. We've agreed to reimbursement. We agreed to everything. And then everybody says, oh no, we can't do an MOU, and it gets pushed out and it gets pushed out and we get screwed over. So no, I want to get an MOU in sync with reimbursement. The reimbursement agreement.
I see Naomi's hand.
Yeah, I agree. I think basically we have been putting the cart before the horse. I mean, how can we, so like, let's say that I have let's say you, ILG, you have a contract with the air district, unless you're like in a trust relationship with them, you wouldn't have start facilitating these meetings or doing work before having a signed and executed contract. That's how I see this MOU. The MOU is going to spell out what is the relationship going to be between the air district and the city, but not beyond the truck rerouting. That's just one little element. That was the one that hit the ground running, perfect, but we need the structure where this belongs to. And we have been asking and asking and asking. I've been suggesting that and I understand Scott is not going to be responsible for signing that agreement. I have been suggesting, when are we having a meeting as a steering committee with the different council members whose districts are part of the AB 617? Many of them are in the dark. They don't know about this. They have not been approached about this. And I think that's a big mistake that I have been personally asked a lot of times to fix by having this meeting. Just as we had the meeting with the school district where the trustees were, why we haven't had that kind of meeting with the council. I think we need to do that first, and then we can move on and implement whatever needs to be happening for the rerouting contract.
Thank you for that clarification. I mean, I see Greg's hand, and then I want to obviously give the Air District an opportunity to weigh in on this request and this motion, since they would be responsible for, I think, initiating those conversations with the city if that were to move forward. Greg.
Yeah, so I'm trying to understand this particular motion. So are we talking about the connection between the Air District and the city on the funding of the truck route? Okay, that's why I see you, girl. I see you, sis. So explain to me exactly what you are looking for beyond that, because I'm only asking because we were talking about the truck rerouting and the funding.
And I think the mistake has been made by lumping the two things together.
Okay.
We have always said that there are two separate things, that we need to have a memorandum of understanding between the Air District and the city, that, by the way, is mentioned in so many strategies of the SERP, where the Air District says, oh, no, we don't have the authority. This is a land use decision. It's the city. No, we don't have the authority. This is the land use decision. So there were so many strategies that were like that, that at the board meeting, when the cardboard approved the CERB in February of 2020, that was something that was included in the resolution, and that Samir made the commitment to do. And a memorandum of understanding with the different entities that had that land use authority, so that all those things were going to be taken care of. So yes, Greg, you're totally right. This memorandum is a broader document.
Thank
Not,
you.
and I would say that thing I see this particular item of the rerouting is just one little piece of that big framework, if you know what I'm trying to say.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. I really, really appreciate that. So I just want to say, look, as a charter city, we have different abilities to do different things that other cities don't. And we are not relinquishing under any circumstance our ability to rule on land use to any third party, right? Whether it is, and so we want to retain that right. So I think what you need to look at is, what can the community do in order to have an adequate voice, a more positive voice in land use strategies? And not to pick on anyone, but and I don't know much about this project, because thank God I'm not in District 3 anymore, but the Elm property, right? The Elm Street property, where CARB did put in a letter. That's totally different. The city went through it, goes through its process, and that's what we want to continue to do. And the Air Board, as one of our partners, has the ability to comment. And I think that what you may be looking for is more of an MOU with the Air Board to say that they will bring those to you, to the AB 617 group.
No, Greg, we're not. We're not, Greg. No.
Okay, well, hold on, Lisa.
We're also
quite finished. Not quite finished, Lisa. To have a carve out of those entities, similar to how we do the district, the city council district advisory committees that are made of residents of each council district.
Thanks, Greg. And I just want to flag that Ryan's had his hand up, and I think he's probably got something relevant to build on this. Let's have Ryan. And then I do see hands from Ivanka and Venice. And I know, Lisa, you weighed in as well. If you would like to reach out again, we certainly will open the floor to you after Venice.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I just wanted to share, and I thought we had a really great conversation last month's meeting, on this particular subject in regards to an MOU. We had I know Greg gave talked about the opportunity for us to work together. Brian Clements went over all the different things that we've been coordinating with the city on, including land use and the CEQA commenting on projects that are going on, and we heard from steering committee members in support, like those were the things that needed to be in an MOU. And so, from that discussion, we were looking at what we can do with that. Those conversations are ongoing. I'll let Brian speak to that more on that. But I mean, that to me was and it seemed like the steering committee was supportive of that effort, and including those things in a possible MOU or other administrative mechanism as described in the CARB resolution for the South Central Fresno CERB.
I do see Scott's hand. I'm going to go Scott, Venice, and then Ivanka, and then Lisa if she needs to weigh in again.
Thank you, Erica. Good discussion. I did want to add that we have heard from some community members, and early on in the process, a strong desire to change truck routes as quickly as possible. And the question came to the city, what is required to do that? And simply, it is embedded in an ordinance, meaning essentially a local law, the city council would need to adopt a new truck route map by ordinance. And to do that, we would need a CEQA document in support, you know, if we're moving them from street A to street B, or eliminating street A, and that'll push some volume to another location. And the desire was really how quickly can we do that, and what needs to happen. So, you know, I'm just wrestling with, there is that desire to remove trucks from certain streets. And I just want to acknowledge that the whole MOU topic could be much more lengthy in nature. How an interagency agreement about how they operate, and you know, if that were ultimately a focus, that becomes a critical path item. An RFP for a truck route study is relatively easy by comparison.
Thank you, Scott. Venice, I see your hand. Thanks for your patience.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Scott. I think the reason that we are talking about an MOU is because our experience has been that community voice is often cast aside. And I would use the example of the rezone as the best example that we have in front of us. And so for 2 years, people fought and worked and met and came up with viable solutions to the problem of having industrial zoning in West Fresno. And after a planning commission meeting, which adopted it unanimously, and a city council meeting, we're still now back at square one, talking about the very same issue of not doing what we have done in the past. So the need for clarity and consistency and a sense of integrity about the decisions that are made and how the community gets to weigh in, but whether or not that community weigh in and that community input is valued at a point where we're not relitigating every couple of years the very same issues that are really at the core of AB 617. And so I think, you know, it was very much appreciated to have CARB sign in, put in a letter in support of the community. But it seems a little silly that we are not understanding that in part the reason we're needing to do air monitoring is because there are impacts that are longstanding and a pattern in practice. And so if we're going to interrupt that, we're going to have to do something quite different. And so I do see the MOU as a way of trying to really clarify, what are we going to do? How are we going to add some leverage to the community's voice? Because clearly the community can speak and it is often ignored. So that would be my concern, is that we not keep repeating things and we not have to keep litigating the things that we think have already been won.
Thank you for that, Dr. Curry. And if I can just do 2 things. Number one, acknowledge that there is some confusion around the language of the motion that was made initially. I will ask those that initially requested to put that up for discussion to think about the exact language, and then if you need to reframe it, please do so after Ivanka's comment. But the general discussion is around connecting and correlating the MOU and the action on that, moving that forward before allowing the other contract on truck reroute to move forward with the city. And Scott has identified that there's a possibility of delaying that RFP process and changing the critical path of that if that takes place. And others are certainly weighing in with their input. Ivanka, you had your hand up. Thanks for your patience.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Dr. Curry just stated. I want to motion, in case it wasn't clearly heard last time around, I would like to motion that the steering committee have a MOU subcommittee, and under a subcommittee also separately a land use subcommittee. We can have them in the same, or we can have them in a separate subcommittee, because they do kind of go hand in hand. So I leave that up to the steering committee, but this conversation is way more than tonight. Second thing is, we are not, as the steering committee, going to allow you to water down the importance of an MOU into the funneling of one truck reroute study measure. The quick solution to what you were saying, Scott, regarding the timeline problem, was that we still need an MOU specific to the truck reroute, secondary to the main MOU that this steering committee needs to be able to have with all the points that Naomi just stated, whether it's the trust issues, the lack of communication, the conversations that the Air District wants to proudly come back and say that they had with the city, that's great, but we do not want to continue to be told what was discussed. Again, we are expecting to be able to be at that table. So I see this as of tonight, there's a need for agreements to be made, like Lisa was talking about, specific to those issues and the funding of the RFP and the truck reroute, separate from the MOU.
Thank you for that. Was there anyone else in the queue, Erica?
There is one hand from Kevin.
Okay. Kevin will be our last comment. Kevin will be our last comment. And we currently have 2 motions on the floor. One motion that currently has a second that we need to take care of first, and then we'll have a roll call vote. And then we have a second motion from Ivanka that will be secondary to mitigating issues relative to land use subcommittee, joint committee. Okay, so Kevin, it's all you.
First of all, I'll second Ivanka's motion to have an MOU subcommittee that would include land use issues. I just want to get that on the board. But it sounded to me like we're really, please help me because I did not understand the motion clearly. Is the first motion to not give the city any of this money until they, because there's 2 MOUs that it sounds like we're talking about. Again, clarify to me that that's true, that there's the MOU for the truck reroute, which is what we've all been working on. And from my perspective, we should just keep that going because we're making progress there and we need to get that done. And that in no way impinges on the city's land use, anything, or authority or anything else. It's just it's a study. So we need to get that done so we have that information. So I got to be honest, I would oppose any holding back of money to get that going, but I'm fine with meeting as a committee first to rediscuss it. But the other one is the MOU with the city that's more of a long-term relationship of how the city works with the CSC. And so that is that what we're talking about here? Two different MOUs with a motion blanketing, if we don't do one, then we're not going to do the other. Please clarify for me, Naimeen or Lisa, because I'm lost.
Yeah. So Kevin, I'll also add to that. Just from a Robert's Rule of Orders standpoint, who I'm sure many on this call are familiar with, Lisa is the maker of the motion. So if she was willing to offer a friendly amendment to include Ivanka's comments in the motion, she would need to restate the motion, and then she would need to get a second from somebody on the floor, and then we would be able to move forward, but we wouldn't be able to take 2 separate motions.
Point of order. We are talking about 2 separate actions. They're not one and the same. And Naomi clearly said that. They're not one and the same. The truck route study is different than the MOU. So you have to separate the motions. Okay? I just want to be clear.
Right. Suddenly we're using Robert's Rule of Order, which is we've never done that before, so
I know. Sorry,
okay,
Kevin.
Whatever. You know, okay.
It's my student government training. Forget my Fresno State days.
Yeah, you are correct. Just as from a governance standpoint, we have not done this before. It's certainly not written into your charter, and many of you are part of committees and steering committees where those are utilized. There are 2 different issues on the table. We certainly defer to this committee on how you would like to proceed with those discussions and if those votes need to be taken. And I did want to make sure that Ryan has an opportunity to weigh in here because I certainly think this connects to his team's work. If Eric, if you're good, I'm going to pass it to Ryan and then we'll take additional comments on this.
Yeah, I want to do a few points of clarification. So on the truck reroute, there would be the RFP, which the city would do. And then there would be a contract between the district and the city of Fresno. We don't consider that an MOU. We consider that just a contract for that work. The RFP would act as the scope of work that would be under that agreement. So that's just one point of clarification. And in regards to the MOU, Brian Clements was going to talk a little bit about the discussions that were had. The one thing that I want to remind everybody of, I think, and we've been doing a great job as a committee on this, is working together. AB 617 does not include any new legal mandates. And as much as we want things, it doesn't. And so we want to continue to make sure that everything and staying true to the principles and the spirit of it by getting the things that are included in the resolution completed, the things in the community emission reduction program completed, and that requires everybody having a willingness to be at the table to do those things. If at some point the city or the county says they do not want to work on those things and they do not want to move forward, we don't have an ability to tell them they have to. And so one of the things that we try to do is highlight the importance. And I appreciate Greg and being here and being part, and Scott being here and being part of this. And they've been here from day one and looking to advance these different components that make up the South Central Community Emissions Reduction Program. And I understand the frustration that certain things haven't gotten to the point that the steering committee wants. We are actively working on it. We understand what the committee has asked for in the MOU, and Brian had given an update last month on the things that we're doing to coordinate land use and commenting, and ways that we could provide enhanced, providing more information to the steering committee. And from that discussion, it sounded like we had a really positive path forward to work on that. And I don't want to take steps that are potentially going to be damaging to the work that we're doing together to move that forward. So I mean, I get it. You're frustrated. I understand it. I would just say, give us a little more time to work with the city on this and bring something back, and hopefully it meets everybody's expectations.
I think Naeem's talking. I do see hands from Lisa and Denise.
Yeah, so I was reading Naeem's comment that
I mean, we have been waiting for a year and 2 months. So how much
So Naeem did obviously get cut off a little bit. I think for the interest of time and in respect for Lisa and Venice's hands as well, and the additional comments that I think want to be made. The question I think that's up that the group has identified is there a time frame that the city or the air district can identify? Is that there will be meetings in the next month? What is the specific thing that we can write in as an action item to with some accountability associated with it, so that there's more teeth to the discussion? I think there's a sense.
So Erica, if you wouldn't mind, my interruption. I'm sorry, I raised my hand this way.
No worries.
As I'm trying to eat my dinner. I think there's one critical component missing that's been missing from day one, is the person who oversees land use is not a part of this body. That's the first point. So we've got to get Jennifer Clark, our planning director, or someone in her shop who early on they attended as the public, but they weren't at this table. They weren't a part of this circle. So that's number one. So we have to expand to that person, keeping in mind that us as government folks we don't vote. We just make suggestions based on what you ask us. So you have to add the planning department as a part of this discussion, because they make the ultimate land use. And that's been a critical flaw in this whole process. And I think if you fix that by adding someone from the planning department who can speak for that department, if it's not Jennifer or her designee, because this is also planning commission night, I think that would be important.
Thank you for that.
Okay, can I please jump in? Because I've been waiting very patiently. First off, let me take Ivanka's suggestions for the subcommittees. I will accept that as a friendly amendment if Naomi will agree to that, so we can just expedite this. Furthermore, I want to take some issues with some comments made by Greg. Greg, at no point did we ever perceive or ask for the authority to make land use decisions over this city. So please don't get offended, but your perception is wrong. For second, you received the agenda just like us. You know what's going to be on the table. You've come to these meetings. You know the MOU is important. We've been talking about this issue now for what, more than 6 months? You are obligated to make sure somebody from the city gets involved. You are the representative. So, you know, I just look at it this way, guys. Let's sit down, let's talk. What is wrong with that? Let's get some agreements. Let's figure out who's doing what. We're not asking to get the legal authority of the Planning Commission. Who would ask for that? We know better. So, you know, let's just—
No, Lisa, I think you misunderstood me. The Planning Commission also meets on Wednesday nights. So there are some nights that we are meeting as 617, where the Planning Commission staff is also meeting, including Jennifer. That's all I was saying.
And they only meet once or twice a month, and there's
Twice a month.
Twice a month, and there's 28 other days in the month in which we can meet together to talk MOUs.
But I'm just saying, at this table, we often conflict with Planning Commission and our regular AB 617 meetings.
And
that's
when we have a subcommittee, that will hopefully not occur, and we can start to move forward. Yes, this will, as Scott said, be a critical path issue. It'll be a critical path element. But here's the thing. This issue has been raised for well over 6 months, and both staff from the city and the air district have been very lax about not following through and getting things in motion. Now we're here. We have a motion at hand. We need to move forward. Let's work it out. Let's see what we can do. And if there's nothing we can do, there's nothing we can do. But if there's something we can do, then let's get it done, guys. We're wasting time. Because if you think about it, we thought this truck route study was going to be done, what, last year? And we've already wasted a year. So, you know.
So Lisa, you're no longer on sound, but I think we heard you say you accepted a friendly amendment to your original conversation, and it was specifically around the subcommittees. I want to acknowledge that I see Dr. Curry's hand. I want to give Brian Clements an opportunity to weigh in as well, because he had some input. But what I want to clarify on Lisa's comment is that she said she took a friendly amendment to her original request, and it sounded like that was around convening committees related specifically to the MOU and moving that forward as quickly as possible. Is that your new request, to have that committee scheduled as quickly as possible?
Yes, it should have been scheduled 6 months ago. I mean, God, we're like burning daylight, guys.
Okay.
Okay,
So
and then
now.
and then so the motion, she's restated the motion, and then if there's a second, and then we'll offer Dr. Curry an opportunity to close out our comments to vote on the item.
And I do want to acknowledge Brian also, I think, has something specific to this item that might provide relevance to that conversation. I don't know if you can see his hand, Eric.
Yes, that's fine. Okay, Brian will be the last comment from the committee before we move forward.
Thank you. Dr. Curry, we see your hand. Thank you.
Thank you. So I feel like we've covered that issue. I do want to just ask about two things. One, when you're talking, Scott, when you're talking about rolling the funds over to the 2022 budget, who's responsible for making sure that that happens? We've had instances where we thought it was going to be rolled over and it was lost. So I just want to know who's going to be responsible to make sure that that actually happens. And then secondly, where are we with the second part of this process of truck rerouting, which is really to address the public health impacts? Could you give us an update on that part of the study?
Dr. Curry, great questions. First, on ensuring the funding is in place. So you have two key representatives here. One for me, just as a department head, it was in our Public Works Department's submission to roll those funds over. Greg is here representing, the administration team. There's wide recognition of the importance of that. And so then, the mayor's budget as proposed, that's very extensive, a lot of line item detail and such. I know for my team, we'll ensure that's included. And then, we go through budget deliberations in June. And I've heard nothing but support from our city council to moving that forward. So we'll ensure that happens. On the second note, just again, actually appreciations to you, Dr. Curry, for working with us. COVID is a challenging time, as we all know, and we are working with some of the contacts, actually some connections Dr. Curry has. We're open to either kind of a Fresno State arrangement or UC Merced, and just that is a parallel effort. There's really no need for an RFP on that one, but it's really what is the scope of that study and the funding. Ultimately, that would be a contract, kind of an interagency contract between the university, and really our AB 617 effort, whether that's a direct agreement. We haven't determined yet whether really that would be just a direct contract with the Air District, or is that a contract with the city? And, we haven't discussed that yet. The focus is really on what is the scope of that effort. But we've heard very clearly from the subcommittee and this whole steering committee on the importance of the health study. So that's moving in parallel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. And I think, Brian, you are closing us out on this item. And while you're doing that, I'm going to ask Lisa to type into the chat the specific language so that Eric can reconvene on that.
Yeah, thank you. Just following up with what Ryan was talking about, last meeting, I thought we had a great item, great discussion. I appreciate all the feedback we received after I was going over our process and enhanced communication with the city, on projects and commenting on those projects. Just to clarify and just to make sure we're talking about the same thing, I'm talking about the MOU, not truck rerouting or related MOU, just that MOU. One of the measures in ARB's resolution was to, ensure strengthened, communication and working relationship between the agencies. And that's what I was going over last meeting. And that was the core of the MOU. And, that was really what was well received by this committee. And so that's what we, without going over all those items again, which would be a little bit of a rehash. I know we're low on time here today, but that would be the core and the focus of the MOU, is to ensure there's that enhanced coordination and commenting process. So just want to clarify that.
Thank you for that, Brian. Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Eric, and I don't see any notes in the chat with Lisa's clarified and just written down motion. I don't want to certainly get it wrong. So Lisa, if you do have the opportunity to type the specifics into the chat.
I was actually hoping to talk to Naomi offline for a moment so I can make sure I have the correct language, because I need it to massage. So Naomi, give me a call real quick, if you would be so kind. And plus my arthritis is acting up, so it's going to be a minute.
Eric,
I've been typing all night long.
I'm so sorry to hear about the arthritis, but I understand you two needed to connect. So Eric, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk to us about how you'd like to move this forward.
I guess I was hoping that there would have been clarity relative to the motion. So I guess we can pause and go on a 5-minute break and let people go to the restroom. And then we can reconvene.
Can I put something in before we do that? I just wanted to say the only reason I used the term motion was because I did not feel that the Air District or anyone else was truly hearing us when we had asked at our last meeting, as Ryan stated, we made good conversation about what we would want to see in an MOU. But those things, like any other measure, whether it was air filters, air, school buses, whatever, needed a subcommittee. But that's not moving forward. So again, it felt like we're not being heard. That's the only reason that I use the term, let's motion this, if that's going to be what we have to do, instead of just listening to what the steering committee wanted, which was to have another subcommittee so we could dive deep into land use and an MOU subcommittee and discuss those things further instead of using our time like tonight. So that is still not even necessary to make that a motion if we just do that like we were able to do with all the other subcommittees.
Thanks for that clarification, Ivanka. And per the charter with this subcommittee or with this steering committee, this is a way we can do consensus. We don't typically utilize Robert's Rules of Order. It's not against a rule. It's just not been the practice for this committee. So if there is consensus, there certainly is that opportunity to skip the roll call and move forward with the general approval, general consensus, 50% plus one. If we have more than half of the committee saying that they're in favor of convening a special committee or an ongoing subcommittee on that topic, it can be done. It can be done rather quickly and within the context of how you have moved things forward before. So thank you for clarifying that, Ivanka.
That could be separate than what Lisa was addressing.
Yeah, I think that's why we wanted to see what she has in writing to make sure that there's clarity on those two items. They may make more sense separate. And I do recall that there was a request to have that at the last meeting, and that was reflected certainly in those meeting minutes. And it's again reflected in these notes.
Right. And I just think to eliminate any discontention that folks might have, I think that it is valuable for us to motion the direction for the Air District. So there is clarity from those community members and residents that have a desire to, separate, and those that have a desire to bring forward an additional subcommittee to ensure that everybody is being heard in the process. And that clarity is given to the Air District in terms of the action and how to reconcile. And because we have certainly heard from the city tonight, and we certainly appreciate Greg's feedback and other committee members who have shared in this conversation.
Thanks, Eric. I do see Ryan's hand. Eric, I know you kind of gave us a little bit of a break. I can't tell if people are on the line still or not. Conversation has continued. If people are still on the line, I want to be mindful of your break comment. I just want to do a quick check and see. There's a lot of cameras on and off, but I do want to make sure we're not losing people because they took a quick bio break.
I'm here, Erica. I'm here
okay.
Everything.
Oh, good. There's a lot of great. We want to make sure we're not losing anyone. If you're okay with it, Eric, we have almost gotten to the 5 minutes, and Ryan does have his hand up. Does that work for you?
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so we can move forward. I'm not sure if Lisa is back on the line. Lisa, are you there?
I think she and Naimeen might still be talking, but Ryan.
Actually,
no, we're back.
We're done, and I'm actually going to be doing a little wordsmithing. So give me about another 5-10 minutes, maybe, because
our meeting is slated to end at 7:30. So I just do want to do a time check.
Oh yeah,
for everyone.
Yeah.
So we're running pretty tight against time.
So
yeah,
maybe...
we don't we want to move this item forward, Lisa.
Yeah.
So we'll either vote it up or down. I hope you have the right language ready to present at this moment, because we've kind of belabored.
Yeah, I can, but I thought you guys actually had people that took notes during this. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, no
This is the rough language I have for the motion. Are you ready, Eric?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. The City of Fresno Air District and the Air District, along with input from the Community Steering Committee, the AB617 Community Steering Committee, shall establish an MOU in no more than 90 days that addresses the collaboration and implementation of land use in the SERP. Do you see, this is where I got to work on it. Basically, the Air District, the city, and members of the committee basically sit down and they work out an MOU and address how land use is being implemented within the AB 617 footprint. The second paragraph basically includes Ivanka's amendment that the CSC establish a MOU subcommittee on, oh goodness, my notes. See, this is why you guys got to have somebody to take notes. On land use. What was the other one? You had two of them. Ivanka, what was the other one?
Ivanka mentioned two different subcommittees, though she said they could be one. It was one related to the MOU and one related to land use.
Okay, to have an, okay.
Because they go to those issues, right? Like we need an MOU subcommittee for the general the bigger concern.
I think, let me just my suggestion was that that in that MOU, so all the part that she wrote read at the beginning is okay. I just would like to say that basically the MOU would describe that collaboration processes between the city and the air district for the implementation of the SERP strategies that are related to land use. So it's like it describes how that collaboration is going to happen. And I agree that, we need something, a subcommittee that would, help implement or carry on this MOU, but not only the MOU, because the MOU is just going to be one little piece of a whole process that needs to happen to continue implementing the other strategies in the SERP that are associated with land use. So I don't know how to wordsmith that, but that to me, that's what I wanted to support in a motion.
Hey, real quick, just I think that we can definitely set up a meeting, a land use subcommittee meeting without a motion. We can get send out a doodle poll over the next couple of weeks to see people's availability. So I mean, if that works, then we don't need to do a motion on that portion.
Well, the reason why we're doing the motion is we've kind of been asking for a while. So let's just do the motion and get it done with and move forward.
Yeah, but the issue you've been asking for a while is you don't have the land use staff. Scott and I and Lupe Perez are not the land use people. You need the planning and development staff. So you've got to add them to this group, make them homogenous with you all.
And we're not saying that's not going to happen. Yeah. We're making the jump off point to make that happen.
Well, can you add it to your motion at least?
Well, it's the city.
No, don't look. This is not the city's committee. You got to remember, we're guests. We don't get a vote. We didn't get a chance to participate, even though we may be residents or we may be constituents.
So you are asking for to become voting members of this?
No. Okay. I'm asking for you to add our planning and development, someone from our planning and development team who oversees land use.
Yeah.
That's all. That's all.
And that is important. And that's why I put in the chat that there were people from that department, Jennifer herself in various meetings that she participated. So we definitely need them. And that's something that the MOU is going to describe, that you guys are going to, that these people are going to have a seat at the table.
And if you remember, they were treated as public. They didn't comment. They took notes.
I was sitting next to Jennifer in some of the working discussions that were happening when we were developing.
Right, so but when Jennifer was, that's Jennifer. But when her staff was there, they took notes and they reported back to Jennifer. What I'm saying is, you need to allow Jennifer to say either I'm going to do it or I'm going to appoint one of my assistant directors to be a part of this body as a government official.
I don't think none of us would have ever be opposed to that. I don't think that neither Jennifer or her staff had actually made that request at any point.
I'm telling you, this has been a conversation we've had internally, and I'm in a totally different role. Remember when I started, I was a transportation director only. Now I'm an assistant city manager. So I hear from Jennifer
you see
that this
the
is an issue.
importance of that good communication and having a framework. That's what we have been lacking, and that's why we're in circles.
Right. And so I'm trying to get us all on the same page.
And
Look,
Greg, I
this-
think it's
that's
all
all.
about not that. Of course, they would be included under the umbrella of the city. But if you want me to specifically say, planning and development, then fine, planning and development.
Yeah, no, please, because we have 3 slots. We have 3 slots. That's
okay,
it.
that is not a problem.
So I thank you, Lisa, for that. And
Because I totally understand that, and I do not want you to think that this committee or this process is sliding the city.
Oh no, I don't think that at all. Look, you all know I love all y'all. I'm just thinking you need another player at the table, and you need the planning and development department.
Of course, and I would hope that they would come open and honest and have great communication, because none of us can move forward unless we move all together as one.
Mm-hmm. And that's the same group that Ryan and his team have been meeting with, and so that's why I think this is so important. So you get it not only from Ryan, but you get it directly from them.
Yeah, Greg and Lisa, Greg, I definitely want to thank you for adding that. Lisa, it's a proposed recommendation. Again, we are approaching the 7:30 hour, and I would like to close out this item. So if you can finish the second paragraph of your motion, and then we can do a roll call vote.
Basically, it's the establishment of 2 subcommittees, one on the MOU and one on land use. The steering committee established an MOU subcommittee and a land use subcommittee.
All right. Is there a second?
Naomi is my second.
I need to hear Naomi.
I want to second Lisa's motion.
Erica, can we do a roll call vote?
We can. It will take some time. I do want to acknowledge we just did another motion and Ivanka has her hand up just in terms of the order. But yes, we certainly can do a roll call vote, or we can do an abstain vote.
Can we just use the little functions that have the thumbs up?
Everybody doesn't have access to those, unfortunately.
Yeah, and also there are folks who are non-English speakers who are on the line, and we have over 40 folks on the Zoom call. So I want to make sure that only those members who are voting members' voices are represented in this vote. And so if staff can go ahead with the roll call vote.
Certainly. So we have the motion in a second, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues, Kim and Hannah, to administer the vote. The way that this works is that we will call your name in order, and you or your alternate, if you have one, will vote in favor of the motion or opposed of it. And we will show you the tally at the end of the vote. And this is a 50% plus 1 voting tally of those present.
Okay, thanks, Erica. And this is going to be, I'll be listing this, but Hannah's also going to be doing it on her end to keep me honest. So Lilia, for the motion, yes or no? pretty sure I saw her earlier. Yeah, I think Anna's getting her vote.
She's still here, but she's not responding.
Okay, maybe we can turn it back.
Oh,
Sí, aquí estoy. Voto sí.
Okay, thank you so much, Lilia.
has approved.
Okay, Venice.
One quick point of order, no apologies here. In the chat, there is a motion that is flagged. Kim did type that in, and it's noted that there's a subcommittee on land use, and the first item of business is the MOU. Lisa's actual request was to have 2 different subcommittees. So I just want to acknowledge that and make sure that that's clear, that there is in motion to have 2 separate subcommittees, one on the MOU and one on land use.
Thank you for that. The motion is, as stated, 2 separate committees.
Yes.
Thanks for that clarification. Venice is yes. Okay, great. And Genevieve, I don't think I have seen her tonight. Or Diami, Laura Moreno. Let's see. Estella.
I don't see Estella tonight.
Her name is listed. She is here. Okay.
She had a reaction. Okay.
Yes.
We
Oh,
can't
great.
see the
Thanks for
reaction.
flagging that.
Thank
Okay.
you.
And Eric, our co-host.
Yes.
Thank you. Larry Taylor.
Yes.
Okay. Isabel.
Sí.
Thank you. Santok. Dylan.
Yes.
Thank you. Lisa.
Of course, yes.
Just had to make sure. Janet Gardner.
Yes.
Kevin Hamilton.
Yes.
Bill Jensen.
Yes.
Nyameen.
Yes.
Kimberly.
Yes.
Ivanka.
Yes.
Okay, and I think that is everyone that I saw on the line, but I will share so that you can validate your votes.
And if anybody did not get called that is eligible to vote, please raise your hand and unmute yourself now.
Yes. So the total would be 14-0.
All right. Thank you all, commissioners, board members, for that lively dialogue. And we certainly appreciate the City of Fresno's partnership and the work of the Air District as they look to take a collaborative approach to reconcile some of the concerns that have been brought forward. We're now going to go to our next agenda item.
Eric, before we go on, I need to jump to go to another meeting, but I did want to raise a concern that I had. I sent an email to Jamie in regards to our next meeting, June 9th. That's also the meeting of the TCC with the public. And I never received a response. And I just want to remind the Air District again to be mindful. It only takes a few minutes to check to see if there are any other meetings going on before a doodle pool is sent out to us for us to be able to select a date. Since things are starting to open back up, you got a lot of land plans that are starting to meet and are asking for community input as well. So I think it's very unfair and disrespectful to residents who want to participate to have to choose which meeting they're going to attend.
Sorry, I think we're all about to say the same thing. I think at the bottom of this agenda, we acknowledge that the next regular CSD meeting cannot occur on that date.
Okay, I
so
just never received a response, and I don't really say too much of nothing, but I expected a response from someone from the Air District.
Yeah, Kimberly, I did email you back, so I don't know what happened. I know there's some other folks on that email as well, so I apologize that it didn't get through. Yeah, my apologies.
All
And
righty.
thank you for that. We'll definitely take a deeper look at the calendar for
No, we
future.
shouldn't have to take a deeper look.
No,
That should
no,
be on air district.
Yes,
Kim,
no,
Kim,
that's
Kim,
what I mean. The Air District will take a deeper look at future calendar dates, and we thank you for that feedback. And we know folks will do their due diligence in the future to ensure that this issue doesn't pop up again.
Hey, real quick on that, Eric, just before we move on, we did, and we'll send out that email to you again, Kim, to make sure that you got it. Hopefully, the others that were on that email received it. We definitely did understand about the Transform Fresno meeting on that night, and so we talked with the city. They proposed 2 different dates. We explained to them that the night of the TCC meeting, that there was a conflict, and as a compromise, they agreed, as an option to have it the hour before the TCC Fresno meeting. So I just want Kim,
Thank
we
you
are
for that, Ryan. We
looking at
appreciate that
closely,
feedback. Certainly.
Yeah. All right, appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Ryan. You guys have a good night. I'm going to jump to another meeting.
All right, take care. And so we'll go to our next agenda item. Erica?
Yes. So I want to be mindful of time. And I want to ask Eric and the subcommittee specifically, there's certain things that we certainly will not be able to cover in 8 minutes. So we can extend some time, or we can move some other items forward. Technically, we're still on the first agenda item, which is truck rerouting and the MOU. We've got vegetative barriers, community air monitoring, conversations a little bit about the planning process and strategic planning, and specifically the SERP prioritization, and then we have some enforcement updates. So quite a few things to cover in 7 minutes, as well as public comment. So I want to be mindful of your time as the CSC and your role, Eric, as co-host. Preference on items we take or table.
May I suggest to table the vegetative barrier report? We didn't have this month, so we're having our meeting on Monday, so it will be more meaningful to table it for next time.
Awesome. There's one thing.
Yeah.
Also, too, can we go ahead and have public
how
comment,
about
please?
this? How about we do the one last item, and then we'll move everything to a future agenda where folks can have, more in-depth conversation on those particular items.
Absolutely. One question I have, and out of respect for the co-host, I do want to acknowledge, though, that there might be something time sensitive in those other reports. And so while I do want to push you guys forward, Hannah, I'm not sure why you're sharing the agenda at the moment, but I did want to make sure that if there's anything time sensitive in those other items, that they have the opportunity to weigh in too, so that you don't miss opportunities to communicate over the course of the month if there's something that you need to respond to or connect with. So I'll just turn to the Air District team.
I think that's really important. And I think if we need to call a special meeting, I think we can do that maybe 2 weeks out.
Great. So I don't see anything that is time sensitive, but if there is anything, if you guys can put that in the chat and we'll flag it. The next item on the agenda is technically community air monitoring. Do we feel like we can move that and move on to the planning and SERP? Or do we want to table that as well, Air District team?
Hey, Erica. Yeah, just real quick on community air monitoring, we do have a subcommittee time set for May 24th at 5 o'clock, so I won't say any more. We'll take some more time to talk about the latest air monitoring work at that meeting in a couple of weeks.
Perfect. I got a note from the Air District. We can table the planning review and the SERP prioritization, so that can come to a future meeting. And then the next thing on the list was the enforcement update from Carbon Valley Air District staff.
Yeah, and I think I'm prepared to go if we want to do that tonight, or if the committee thinks we're running short on time and wants to table it, we could always come back and revisit it next month as well.
Yeah, we can revisit it next month because I'm sure you'll probably have other items to add to the discussion.
This is Warren with CARB, and we'd be willing to come back later date as well.
Okay, well, that actually concludes the agenda with the exception of the wrap up and the public comment. So we're at 7:26 and we do have time for both of those things. If the co-chair would like, we can proceed with those elements and then table everything else for the next CSC meeting.
Absolutely. I'd love to hear from the public.
Perfect. So at this time, we will see if any of the, and there's the screen, if any of the members of the public are on the Zoom line. Now's the time to raise your blue, what used to be your blue hand. Raise your hand, your electronic Zoom hand. And if you're on social media, these are the ways that you can connect with this meeting if you haven't already. And then I will turn to the Air District team to check all the necessary counts to see if there is anyone that has provided any feedback so far. And I'm going to see if there's any hands raised in the public. I'm not seeing any, and I'll ask Hannah and Kim if you all see any, either visual or digital hands raised by the public.
Erica, we need to go back and talk about the wrap up next steps too.
We definitely will. I don't see any hands and I don't see anything from Heather.
Nope.
Let's talk wrap up.
We just want to let everyone know, you'll see it on the agenda, that the June meeting does conflict with the TCC. So I want to make that super clear. So what's going to happen is that we are going to send out a doodle poll with some optional evening dates. It's really important that you fill out the doodle poll because we go by what folks put in that doodle poll. It really comes down to what the committee members who take the doodle poll tell us will work for them. So you'll see that coming out probably tomorrow and definitely by Friday if it doesn't come out tomorrow, but please fill it out so that we can reschedule our June meeting. Just to repeat, our June meeting will not be happening at the regular time of June 9th due to the TCC meeting conflicting with it. Will not be happening. Please complete the doodle poll that will be emailed out. And that way, if you don't get a doodle poll, give us a call and we can actually do it over the phone. For our Spanish speakers, we can do it over the phone for you all as well. But definitely be aware. I don't want people thinking there's a meeting on June 9th because I know lots of people will be at the TCC. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. The last item on the wrap up is actually related to something we didn't talk about, but that is relevant to the planning, which was requests to make sure that there is real clarity on what happens next in a lot of the conversations that have taken place during these meetings. And so there was a request to make sure that we're documenting and that you're seeing the action items. So I want to give you an opportunity to see what we've documented so far, at least in terms of the action, the owner, and by when. I'm going to verbalize those, and then I'll share my screen knowing that the translation needs to happen. We'll do this very briefly. The first thing is that you asked that we reach out to the trustees and work with Reggie on the bus program and the CSC engagement with it, schedule a meeting to see if they can leverage their ideas for those 16 buses. Air District would do that as soon as possible. Keith was going to connect with Brian Moore with CARB regarding air filters and the UC Davis options to determine if that air filtration technology can be applied to classrooms. But simultaneously, the Air District's going to work with Keith to make sure that the air filtration measure and the funding aligns with the HVAC upgrade and the infrastructure plans that the schools have. Then you're going to schedule a special meeting or a committee meeting on air filtration to make sure that schools have the correct information and the right impression about those incentive measures. And then there's a request to add Jennifer Clark, who's with the city's land use department, to these CSC meetings and or to the subcommittee on land use coordination to make sure that that voice is connected to this process too. And then you all approved a motion specifically with regard to the 90 days that you would want to have that MOU with the city developed. And then you also requested 2 different subcommittees, one on land use and one on the MOU, and that you would invite city staff, specifically planning staff, to those meetings to make sure that that is coordinated well and that all the voices that need to be in the room are there. So those are the action items for that meeting. And I will certainly share all of this information with the Air District and they can choose to send that out your way. And then I can also do a quick screen share, even though I did have a couple owners to add into this notes. If anyone would like to see these notes, I'm happy to do the screen share. Otherwise, I'm comfortable to just send it off via email. Perfect. So we did have.
Can I add, I didn't mention that we are having our tentative subcommittee meeting on Monday at 5 p.m. for those that would like to join.
Excellent. Eric, I'll turn it back over to you to see if there's any additional comments before close.
Yeah, so we need to select a facilitator for community partner for a community representative for next month's meeting, if anybody has an interest.
Eric is right. And as you can see, we do it differently every month based on what the community co-host feels comfortable with and has availability to do. So certainly volunteers are always welcome and always needed. And we're so grateful for Eric and all the previous co-hosts. We're always looking for a new one for those future meetings as well.
And what is he offering up? I offered tacos in an orange Fanta, but Eric, you never came to claim. Send me.
I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
Email me your address because I have a gift certificate for you, dude, as a thank you.
Thank you. I will. I'm happy to facilitate next month for those if there's nobody else. But yeah, thank you all.
If you would like to volunteer, feel free to drop that in the chat, and we will have that record of it, or email the Air District.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you, Erica, for tonight's meeting, and everyone
Erica,
else.
it does look like Isabel is unmuted. I'm not sure if she was maybe volunteering.
No, nada más voy a dar las gracias.
She's like,
I'm trying to pressure you.
Isabel just mentioned she'd like to say thank you.
Excellent. Eric, would you like to adjourn this meeting?
Yep, let's adjourn this meeting. Thank you all for your commitment to this conversation and for doing the hard work. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.